Nyeba kunle namdole shing yonde gunge gemba bo semjen gunge nyen chekbo tamje kenla gun chain se omen jeke nge podan ne dusum sangye gunge ngowo ni rang sim chego ngosuma densebe sawe lame shabla so wa ne 정말 담비추 냠술렘비 굴롱상포 타르바톱되기 삼베 니중당 되니 라니 코나체도 마임발 란신 심진 탐지기 체들라 담비추디 퇴삼기꾼이 누구의 삼배 장줍기 셈당 댐베거니 담비추 셈브르슈스
In the beginning, please start by giving rise to the most excellent, pure motivation, that of bodhicitta, thinking that right now you are actually practicing the sacred Dharma. You are in the process of accomplishing the Dharma by means of studying and reflecting on this treatise, and you're doing that with the most pure intention, that of renunciation, to attain liberation, but not only for one's own sake, but to attain liberation for the sake of both self and others. And so then, with that spirit of renunciation and bodhicitta, please listen to the teachings.
네 인도다 정말 나랑 럽종 장기 예 삼배 삼바삼지 마임발 타르바토비 체돌라 똑비 최디 랑귤레 끼고거래 똑비 최디 랑귤레 끼버체발라 룽기체 데이터보텔라 퇴삼지고거래 딘데 임바인디 디니 룽기체디 간데스 뚜고 그랬으나 퇴바당 300군이 뚜고 그래 딘데 임바인디 퇴삼기군이 나랑 룽기체 냠술링기 삼베 삼바디 아니 삼로타이디 게춤버레
We shouldn't think that right now in this class we're just merely studying. Actually, what's happening here is that what we are doing is that we are practicing the Dharma. We are engaging with the Dharma of scriptural transmission. We study and reflect on the Dharma of scriptural transmission that is absolutely important, crucial, in order to gain, in order to obtain the Dharma of realization. In order for the Dharma of realization to dawn in our mind stream, we need to rely on the Dharma of scriptural transmission. And that's what we are doing right now. We are engaging by means of studying, receiving the teachings, reflecting on the meaning of the teachings. We're engaging with this Dharma of scripture or scriptural transmission. And so what's happening here is actually that we are practicing the Dharma. This is actually the hour of our practice, accomplishment of the Dharma. That kind of understanding is really important. So we shouldn't think that we're just merely studying here, like any subject that we can study. What is happening, we are actually gaining experience with the Dharma. We're working with the Dharma here.
They in the Maranso, the Zindayin Sambi Sambatamji Mayimbar, Chedinin Sambi Sambotana, Pendo Chumboyere.
So it will be really great and really beneficial if you will think that what's happening for the duration of this hour and 15 minutes is an actual Dharma session. It's not just an ordinary class, but it's actually your session of practice.
The Dachemani ne Zinda Tsubi Capsula, the Kunlung Samboguni Dambichu Sember Shoes in Labdu, Kenambaki Lamsan, ni Dendesi Sambotang to Baina, Mansu Chuzu Chikering La, Chu Dubatang, Sunamgi Tsodang, Ishiki Tso Gachumboji Sani, ni Pendo Chumboshere.
In this way, in the following classes, whenever I start the class, or the Dharma session actually, by saying, please give rise to pure, excellent intention, that of bodhicitta, please right away bring to mind that what is going to happen now for the duration of this 1 hour is that you're going to accomplish the sacred Dharma. You're going to accumulate the merit, you're going to accumulate wisdom. So what is going to happen is actually you're going to practice the Dharma, you're going to accomplish the Dharma. It's really of great benefit to think in that way. So each next class, I'm not going to remind you, just right away, please think of that.
Teni Anzo Tegwa Chimboki Chudi Nyamlin Chi Yongdu Dusu Tungtung Jiki Nangla Sunam Ki Tsok Gyachimbo Satubeki Nubaye Sumbare Perna Chuzu Jiki Ringla Ngaransu Parjinduk Chasangdi Teni Tade Chudin De Nangla Nyamsu Lintugure.
So the Dharma that we are engaging with here is the Dharma pertaining to the great vehicle, that of Mahayana. And it is said that the teachings, the Dharma of the Mahayana has a great power or capacity to the capacity that enables us to accumulate vast amount of merit in a really short duration of time, right? It is said that Mahayana has this kind of potency. By relying on it, we can gather huge amount of merit in just a duration, like let's say this 1 hour, 1 hour of this Dharma session. What is happening in this 1 hour is that we are able to practice all 6 paramitas or the transcendental perfections just in this one Dharma session.
Tadi Kandiresena Pena Ngaransu Chudin De Rengla Tongmarti Kunungdi Nishibanashin Chanju Semki Sisingugre. Teni Jorwadi Parchin Dug Yobenani Ngaransu Chuzuchi Giringla Dusuchik Tangi Yore and Deganashinki Chu Nye Kichedula Tungin Chichariore Tinsu Chimbe Parchinre. Teni Chu Nyembe Kapsula Lungaki Choba Tinsu Rang Gangde Mayimbar Sasap Chini Nyembaina de Tsuldimki Parchin Chagiore. Teni de Kapsula Sem Yeng Towatang Lu Tozuchi Nyop Towatang Tindeki Sawe Kangendang Tangwe Kangen Tobu Kangen Tindi Yongsibare Tinzula Soba Kom Shagwaina Sobe Parchin Shagware. Then Nani Soba Ke Chumbodi peche nangla susu ki lola mashongbe keja she yongdu ani lokda maje bachini khazange shuba nangshin ta susu loja chungni tok ma tuba insa re samni samlo tang tuba ina meba che shakba ina di ani chula ngesim gi suba segre di tanda kapsu baba ge chumbare dini chula kashin tobe kuni chugni nyama re re la nga nisu saba chik sheki in sheba diki ngarangi mise ki kangan seba le pechu tangi in samba chungshuna tela tsundu re dini chue nyembe kapsu la chuzi cheki ring la semba di shen la mayeng par dambi chue la tsechidu teba tela samdin re dini chue nani she shakwa dinzu langja kare re tu dorja kare re tu langdur ki ni yakbo chini hakoba tulba kare re tu matru becha kare re tu sini she becha tela shirab chage yore ani tamang ngowa chik tang shakwa ina chuzi cheki ring la ngarang su tekpa chimbo ki samba gyachebe chanchib ki simdang joba parchinduk chasang di nyamlindu yakbo chicha tiga yore.
In what way will this Dharma session that lasts only for an hour going to be a practice, a spiritual practice where we are able to accomplish all 6 transcendental perfections or paramitas? Well, we start each session, each class, so to say, by giving rise to pure, excellent intention, that of bodhicitta, right? That's already right there. We're starting with a vast intention of mind of awakening. Then, throughout the class, throughout this Dharma session, we're going to practice the 6 paramitas. Let's start with the first one, the paramita of generosity. Well, here we are generous with our time, with our resources, right? We have come to the class, so we're already giving something to it. We arranging suitable conditions for us to be here. We're giving our time, our energy, our resources. As for the discipline, well, we're not doing this Dharma session only for ourselves, right? Without most carefulness and vigilance, mindfulness, we are staying in this class for the sake of others, without this kind of speck of selfish intentions. That's ethics, that's discipline. For the paramita of patience, well, we're gonna bear, we're gonna really put up with any inconveniences that might arise in this 1 hour. We might get bored, it might get too hot or maybe too cold, we might get hungry, thirsty, what have you. And we're still going to remain undistracted, right? Studying, receiving the teachings, kind of really bearing with all these difficult circumstances that we might encounter in the class. That's patience. But especially, there is a really one type of patience that we need to bring to mind. That's what we're accomplishing here, paramita of patience that has confidence in the view in emptiness, that bears, right, with the profound meaning of emptiness. That type of patience. Why? How are we practicing that type of patience? I already have mentioned in the previous Dharma session that whenever we encounter material that is not really fitting, like in our own mind, something that we can't really understand, we shouldn't give rise to a wrong view, thinking, well, something is wrong with the material, right? Instead, as I mentioned, we need to perhaps to bring attention to ourselves and think that that just must be my own limited capacity to understand the Dharma, right? The material is so profound that my mind cannot really fully comprehend it. So it's really on me. That type of understanding is that patience, the one type of patience that bears with the profound meaning of emptiness, has confidence in that view of emptiness, of profound Dharma. As for the next paramita, transcendental perfection of enthusiasm, or diligence? Well, we are staying in this class joyfully, with delight, right? With enthusiasm, thinking that, well, I'm going to learn something new. How great, how wonderful. This material, this subject matter will help me to do away with suffering, with pain in my life. So this is something so useful. So with that kind of approach of perseverance and joy, you're going to engage with the Dharma. That's the fourth paramita right there. Well, for the paramita of meditative concentration, remaining undistracted, really hearing the teachings, focusing one-pointedly on what is being said without thinking about something else, without letting our mind wander. That's accomplishment of the paramita of meditative concentration. As for the transcendental paramita of wisdom, prajna paramita, receiving these teachings helps us to understand what is to be practiced, what is to be taken up, what is the things that we need to really accomplish in our life, what are the things that we need to do away with, what should we abandon, what is not useful in our life. That's wisdom, that's kind of discernment that enables us to understand, to discern really what is useful, what should be taken up, what is not useful, what is confusion, what is the absence of confusion, right? That's wisdom. That's already, right, 6 paramitas, right, that we're practicing just in this one go. And at the end of each session, each class, we dedicate the merit for the sake of all beings. So in this way, just this 1 hour already includes the vast intention, vast outlook of bodhicitta and the profound application of the 6 paramitas.
Tini anzu gewa chichung garitu ina yang gewa di tarbato beki gyupunsum sokbalan dowar chebala dambasum di changu go yore sini mambusum gre jorwa simge damba mushi mingme damba juk ngowa damba sayadi desum ki tsisina tini gewa di punsum sokbachi chandu go yore.
It is mentioned really often how any amount of virtue that we accumulate can lead to perfect and supreme liberation or Buddhahood. Right? It could be really just something really small and insignificant, so to say, a really small amount of practice that we do, and yet that can be a cause for our perfect enlightenment if it is embraced by 3 excellences, 3 excellent aspects of the practice. So the first excellent aspect of the practice is that whenever we start any process of doing virtue, we start by giving rise to pure motivation of the mind of awakening, known as bodhicitta. Then for the second excellent part, that's the main part of the practice. That is the practice done without conceptualization, without holding on to any reference point, letting our minds be really vast and open without really conceptualizing anything. If we're able to do so, that's the second excellent part, the main part of the practice. And in the end, this third excellence is the excellence of dedication. At the end of each Dharma session, the end of each practice of virtue, we seal it with dedication, with our aspiration prayers that carry our virtue, our goodness towards all sentient beings, towards their and our own liberation. So in this way, there are these 3 excellent points. Then whenever they're present, any amount of virtue will become a cause for perfect and supreme awakening.
Tang anzu chudin de la samlo tang ba ina ni tongmar kunlung sangbe kuni dambe chu sembar shu labdu choba semge damba di kiranzu la tinsui chige yore Tene Mushi Mime Dambasena Maransu Mushi Nyamlin Je Shimbe Kabla Tendeki Nyamlin Jeke Ngarang Nyamlin Jea Ki Chö Jebe Nyamlin Sumga Yang Ngovola Den Dambala Ani Rangshingi Matupa in the Sambati Hops la Dengu Gore, Densuchi Gore. Di Je Masheba in the counter Milam Dan Gyurme Shinji in Sambekoni, Samutai the Ketchumbore. Ta Dordina Karisungu Resena, Kerangi, Nyamlin Mushi di Je Yongbe Capsula, Zimba di Kang to Dupchi Chunjung Chegore, Zimba Chimbuchi Yomare, Sumbare, Tilla Mushi Mime Dambas. Tene ngansu zinda thama dila nge ngowa chik tangire didi dini chuk ngowa tamba sayadire ani kya namba ke chasangi nyamdola tene chuzu chigi ringla sa shaipin gebi zawati ani rangshin simjin tamchi ki tendo pembar shawsani pa jimba tangu gore gebi zawati susula ngagyal mayoye tang gebi zawati chumisaba laso beki kimzindla Dila Karisegrisana Chukmawa Tambas.
Actually, we do have all these three excellent points in this one Dharma session that we engage in every Saturday. Think about this. Each session, each class, so to say, we start by giving rise to pure, excellent intention of the mind of awakening. That is bodhicitta, right? We do it every session, so that's done. As for the main part of this class, of this Dharma session, as it was said, it's the second excellent point is when we let go of any references, any grasping. So, what kind of reference points? What shouldn't we conceptualize in the main Dharma session? We shouldn't grasp onto the concepts such as me, the one who is receiving the teachings, I'm right here, or the Dharma that's being taught, or the act of me receiving the teachings. So, me as the subject, the Dharma that I receive as the object, and the action of receiving the teachings. So, what we should understand is that, in essence, these three notions of myself, something else, and the action, ultimately, they don't have any true existence of their own. They lack inherent nature of their own, this free subject, object, and the action. How should we regard them? Myself, the Dharma, the act of receiving the teachings, we should see it as an illusion, as a dream. That's really, really crucial for us to have that kind of outlook as much as we can. In short, this main part, the second excellent point of the main part is trying to diminish, to curtail any form of grasping as much as you can. Let go of any form of reference point or grasping as much as you can. That will be the second excellence. And lastly, the third excellence that we do engage in is dedication. And we do that right at the end of each this Dharma session, this class where we meet once a week. We finish by sharing our own goodness, this virtue that we have accumulated generously with others. So we don't keep it only for ourselves, but we really dedicate it for the sake of ourselves and for the sake of all other sentient beings, so that we will not have any type of arrogance or pride, right? If we keep it for ourselves, like, oh, it's me who is so great, I came to this class. So in order to let go of that kind of tendency to be proud, and in order to protect our virtue, to not let it go waste in the future, we seal it with dedication. That's the third excellent point that we should engage in.
Tene Temba Chumdin Deki Doi Nangla Lekpar Rabdu Nyanla yila sungshi sani tende sung yore. Tati tunda di kare sungbare sana manzu namgyu dambi chö nyen yongbe kapsula nuki kyun sum sayaji yore. Ani di kyun sum di selbe koni dambi chö nyen kogo yore sungbare. Di sudi nawa mide nu kabuba tabi kyun. Dön yila mizin ba nu shabdulba tabi kyun. Nyumongdang trebe ki tini dukjin tabi ki kyun sani. Ta tinzu nganzu dambi chö 퇴삼 지두 네발도 랑귤라 따제 땅이 동말 때니 균숨데 메바스 그거래 숭바래
Cikchidi lekpar.
렉바르 랍두 년라 일라 숭시 스니 테니 숭여래
Okay.
렉바르 뇽바 랍두 뇽바 일라 숭바
Our perfect teacher, the Buddha Bhagavan, has stated in a sutra, he said, listen well, listen carefully, and retain the material. So this is a really important instruction given by the Buddha because it points out to a few faults that might occur while we study or receive the teachings, while we reflect on the teachings. These few faults known by the name of 3 defects of a vessel. Right? There's this kind of metaphor that we will look at now. There are these 3 faults that might occur when we study or receive the teachings. The first one is the fault of not really listening attentively, which is like being a pot turned upside down. So if the pot turned upside down, nothing can enter the pot, right? The vessel, nothing can be poured into it. So if our minds are really blocked, so to say, right, turned upside down, we're not really listening carefully, attentively. That's the first fault. The second one is the fault of us not remembering the material that we have listened to, which will be like a vessel or a pot that has a leaky bottom, that has a hole at the bottom. Whatever is poured into that pot, well, it's not going to remain there for too long, right? That's what sometimes happens with us as well. And the third fault would be the fault of us mixing the Dharma, the material that we study, with our own afflictive emotions, which will be like a pot that already contains some poison. So whatever you pour into that pot, because it already has some poison, whatever pour, no matter how pure it is, it's going to be mixed with that poison. So that happens also when we come to the Dharma with our own agenda, and whatever we hear sort of gets mixed with our own afflictive emotions. So it's really important to examine our motivation, examine the state of our mind, and see if any of these 3 faults of a vessel present in our mind stream, and then make sure that we kind of let go of them, that we fix that problem.
tan de nani gechi di sumbatire nyumong tangte dukjin tabu se di ngaranzula yongrela yongsi bare di kari sungu yore sena chö che di kari chedu jigi yo se di tarba dang tamji kembe tobi chedu la mayim bar chö di lobjong jani bejo tangni ngarang ki mise di chik gangdar jikdeng ki chik nyede dhagdo dinde ki chedu la bejo tangi yin samba soda waji dinde jungsong wayi na digi dini chö ki pen togu mare dide la dinde ki samba de la kari segirisi na nyamong tangde sila bare di indi tordu na nye kari chini chö dubi yo sedu 타바당 탐지 캠베치도 인세드 세부지 요구거래 삼벤낭다 되게 좀버래 숭버래
Among these faults, defects of a vessel, the third one is something that we really need to watch out for. We need to be careful about that because it could happen to anyone, right? That kind of having that already poisonous attitude when we come to the teachings. So the teachings then get mixed with our own selfish agenda. For example, if we receive the teachings not with the goal of attaining liberation and state of omniscience so that we could help and benefit all sentient beings, but rather we receive the teachings with the agenda to benefit ourselves in this life, like, for example, in order to get some praise, gain, fame, right? Whatever kind of this worldly benefits that we are after, that's that poison. That's that poison that's already in the vessel. And it could happen to anyone, really. And if we do have any of that kind of attitude or that kind of objective, the Dharma that we receive will be of no benefit. It's not going to help us or anyone else. That's why we need to spend a moment to really contemplate, why am I here? What is my objective? And to make sure that that objective, that goal of attaining liberation and a state of awakening for the sake of all beings is really clearly present in our mind stream. So we really need to make sure that objective is clearly there.
Gyumsin dendela teni tananganzu sakya peki shimba shitil se ki nangla tangbo di karisung yoresena tse dila shena chöpa min suni tachini sung yore. Di sungye gyumsin kariresena kerang chö jaya di miyul tse digi chö la mini jigiwe na 아니 친이 따베 값을라 쳐바다고 통 교랑 쳐바 인 덴바 있는 양 등음말라 교랑 쳐바 차기요 말에 숭말에
There is a teaching known as parting from four attachments that's really famous in the Sakya school. So parting from four attachments. And the first line in the teaching, the Dharma, states that if you are attached to this life, you are not a Dharma practitioner. So they are really quite uncategorical there, right? Really cutting it right to the matter. If you have any type of attachment or agenda to get something from the Dharma in this life, you might appear from outside as being a great Dharma practitioner. You even yourself might fool yourself thinking that, oh yes, I am a Dharma practitioner, right? But in reality, in essence, you're not going to be a Dharma practitioner if you still have strong desires and attachments and grasping to the matters of this life.
di indu ngaransu samlola nge mise di chöki chedo pa nge dedicate jegi yin sambaji gogere mato chö di nge mise ki chedo la tsu dedicate je gugudu samba jungsong waina di nyanga tsabo yore.
Part surra, Khenpo.
chöki chedo la 수수 미세디 파 데디케이트 제국어를 땅국어를 마도 아니 미세기 체도를 최디 추 땅샤바이나 아니 kopshuk lokson bare.
Donda nirabo yongedu ngalagonda di par di labna di chö ra yana mitse jema. Yes.
So life dedicated towards the Dharma, right? Not Dharma dedicating towards the life.
So Khenpo said in Tibetan before that it's really important to make sure that it's this, well, exactly what Khenpo just said, that it's our life that's being given to the Dharma dedicated to the Dharma and not vice versa, that we take the Dharma and somehow use it for the sake of this life.
Ta de indi society so logo che su che gu ge re che ki che du la ngarang ka chu le tang gi yin se di logo che su ma che na tini le tang tu gu ma re.
Therefore, you can see that it requires quite a lot of courage. This kind of attitude really requires our courage, our determination, because we're going to sacrifice, give up a lot of stuff, pertaining to this life for the sake of Dharma. And in order for us to really be able to let go of concerns of this life, agenda of this life, we need to have this sort of real courageous determination.
Ngarang su inji ke le na sim ding ni the sense of dedication chirwa di shuk chumba ji ye ke chumba re towards the Dharma.
Really important to have a most sincere attitude that comes from the bottom of our hearts, that attitude of a sense of dedication of our life to the Dharma.
Tini de la ngarang su chusik na la ngejung se gi dwa ngejung se di tunda de garang re tindi chi la ngejung se gi re sense of the decisiveness la war kan la war ta di nge se rwa certainty ji rwa.
So that sense of decisiveness, sense of dedication, that certainty that we're going to let go of all this, of these worldly concerns for the sake of Dharma, that is what we also call renunciation. That word that we use, renunciation, right? That's exactly what it comes down to. That kind of decisiveness, that sense of dedication to the Dharma.
Tini anzu sanje ki chue di nrubi yong du she am samlo tang tang di kane tang gore se na kashe ji sung yo re tangi dordu ji shu ba na rangni la nebe du she kebar chawos chue la mengi du she kebar chawos tini chue tenpa po lang gebi shenyen tenso la memba kebe gin du she kebar chawos tini chue nyamsu lemba la 아니 네 네버 초밤 시비긴 두시게 버자고 쓰는다 된게 삼았단 그거래 숭바래.
The Buddha has also clearly stated the notions with which we should approach the Dharma, our practice of Dharma. I will just briefly mention. There are 4 notions, 4 thoughts that we should give rise to while engaging with the sacred Dharma. First of all, we should regard ourselves as a sick person, being a patient. We should regard the Dharma as medicine. We should regard a spiritual teacher, the one who shows us the path, as a skilled doctor, skilled physician. And we should regard the practice of Dharma, the one that we're actually doing when we're putting the Dharma into practice, that is just like us taking medication and curing our disease. That's the process of getting better.
다 라니라 네바 세디 리기 네사당 셈기 네사니여래 당아라주 조디 단다 취업값을 셈기 네사디 세계여래 되니 셈기 네사들라 nganzu namju nyomongpa, marikpa, decha, kongto, ngaja, tezu chasang di netsare karare sena semgi dungal di yungu yore. Ta de indu tini ngaranzu 강다르 대다 탐지기 셈 마시와지 지교래 셈 기부메 바주 소용 거래 되니 다셈 기부메 바디 파실레게 탑시데 가르레스나 되니 담비 추드레 숭바레 멘라보디 디인디 당 아란술라 dortuna chedi karechini nyamsul lingi yoresena semgi dungadi tele dolwatang deyang nekap samche dowa maimba tendo dowaji nganzu jetuk yorela jebe kokap yore o dela karisegi yoresena chöje sine namkin treslap yores.
When we compare ourselves to a patient, a sick person, here we are not talking about the physical ailments per se, but rather we're talking about the ailments or diseases of the mind. The mind has all these kind of illnesses, such as our desires, our lust, our aggression, aversion, pride, jealousy, doubts, confusion. All of those negative emotions disturb our mind. They torture our minds, they pain our minds so that we lose a sense of well-being, sense of happiness and ease. So what to do? We need to really heal our minds from those ailments. And what is going to cure our mind is the Dharma. That's the medicine. So that's why we need to practice. If we think about the purpose of the practice is that through the Dharma practice, we're going to cure the kind of ailments of our mind that rob us of our peace, of our happiness, of our well-being. And we will be able to cure our minds, not just temporary, like today we are well, but who knows what will happen tomorrow. But rather, we are giving a chance here for permanent, lasting recovery, once and for all, to cure our minds once and for all. That's really what is possible. That's what we are really dealing with here. That's the practice of the Dharma that can do it for us.
Tene ta amjidi gechumbare hinaya ngaransula nguni nesaki nyembodi karichigresena mendi sakogodwa mendi gechumbaredwa te yindu sangye di tsachumbare hinaya ngaransula tene nguni tasosu semdi shiwa chabarchebala chudi nyamsu lengogere mato sangye la kyapsu toni sangye ge ya nganzu ki semgi dungade lakpa ki meba suede tini tapshi yo mare tinde yimba ndu nganzu nangba sangye pe lukso la rangni rangi gönyin rangni rangi dayin tini tomba chumnin degi ya ngeni kyola lam ten shayo lam la kyorang gyuku kore se tinzu chasang di tunda kare song resena ngaranzu penna mendi sani neza meba soko banashin zo di chue di nyamsu leni dungal le targu gre se di tembare.
In the process of recovery, a doctor, a physician, of course, plays an important role. However, it's not really the doctor who cures us, but the medicine. It's the act of us taking medication, whatever was prescribed by the doctor. So doctor is important, but nevertheless, unless we really take that medicine, we're not going to get better. And so the Buddha, in this sense, is important, really important. But unless we practice the Dharma, So the Buddha is important, but unless we practice the Dharma, right, we're not going to get better just by taking refuge in the Buddha, because the Buddha doesn't have a power to remove our suffering, our sickness by his hand. It's us who have to do it. That's why the Buddha said that you are your own protector, you are your own enemy. I have shown you the path, but whether you follow the path depends on you. It's in your hands. It's up to us. Right? The Buddha cannot do that for us. It's really us who have to cure ourselves. And we do that by taking medication, so to say, which really means practicing the Dharma.
Teni amji chisala to me mangbo chi len chokze kangla shade bai na ngachu nesa dag marwa. Tena shi ngaran su lama ten lobjong chang ani ine yang shwe di lale matar na nesa di dag mare sim shidu chag mare sumbare. Tende imba indu nenden nyamsu lemba ni ne nyewar shiwa tang pe tsungba in sungwe di tende re. Tendu ta susu nyima re re la gari jang shakwa di kayo layo ki susu ki semba tu yong du bechu tangyu yo bachi chung sung na di wane dani ki tini men di sani nyima re re la nesa di dabo na shingi pen tok re. Mato ani ngansu inchi ke lai na dharma practitioner maimba dharma holder chaya niga yo re isla.
So hoarder, chalamampo. Yeah. So when we are unwell, we go to a doctor's office. And let's say a doctor, a physician prescribes some medication. And if we buy that medicine, come home, put it on the table and just leave it there, well, it's not going to help us, right? What a loss. We went to a doctor, we bought medicine, and then we don't even bother to take it. We're not going to get better. So in this way, receiving the teachings, studying, hearing the teachings, contemplating on the teachings given by a Lama teacher, but not really practicing them, which means really not taking them to heart, not letting the teachings transform our being, really changing us, we're not going to get the result. That's to say, we're not going to recover, right, by not taking medication. So here, we're not going to get the result of getting happy and balanced, peaceful mind. Not going to happen without our Dharma practice, right? That's why among these four notions, the one, of practicing the Dharma, really putting it into practice, gaining experience, that's actually the act of curing our disease. It's the act of getting better. It's really the one that enables us to recover. So, just getting a lot of Dharma teachings, not going to do it for us, right? We really, what is meant, what is Dharma is there for. What we were meant to do with the Dharma is to put it into practice. So then we will become Dharma practitioners. Otherwise, we'll be just Dharma hoarders that hoard a lot of Dharma teachings, keep them, and never use them.
Ta tinzu dambi chu nyinsul dang kante sini nyamlin che kukre se ki ka dang tinju ki nang la sung sha pa di nye ke namba la dordu ki tsudu shubar he. Tene ta che dang ke namba loptu nyingba ina tinzu keche mangbo goza e gyure. Yang kashi loptu sawa dinde yona tinzu la tene toz pen segire samni shubayin mase ani ngaranzu la nyingba ina yang ni yang do tensue che di ngazu nangba sanje ba ki chue ki chi lobdi chedang ki luksu chi re nima re la ani chanchu ki sem ke nge chung ke sini tensu chi re andi khorang ngaran su ki ta gom ki nyamling ki chashi chi re dende yimba songsa teni tensu nega chumba shida re kar re sana chue di chedang de ma she na ani chue di dribu yakbo samba nashin majungwa tende yongye di chue chedang ma she ni yonggo yore mang cheba di de indu nge di shuba yins.
So this is the way of the proper, correct way of receiving the Dharma teachings, right? Purifying this kind of defects and engendering this kind of four notions. And now some of you might be really seasoned practitioners and you have heard this a lot. That's true, but perhaps some of you might be newcomers, and I thought it will help those of you who are new to the Dharma to hear about this proper way of receiving the teachings. But nevertheless, I want to emphasize that it's really also useful for this so-called advanced or seasoned Dharma practitioners. As you then guys by now know, Dharma style tends to repeat a lot of teachings. Like there's a tradition of repeating the same key points over and over again. And it's done in order to remind ourselves of their importance. That's why each day, we're reminded to give rise to renunciation and give rise to excellent mind of awakening. It's to remind us that's part of the Dharma practice. That's actually kind of comes in the package of the Dharma. If you're a Dharma Buddhist, you're gonna get used to being repeated things over and over again because it has this kind of importance, right? I have to say that I think that a lot of seasoned Dharma practitioners sometimes, get disappointed by not getting the desired results. They practice a lot and then they say, well, I still didn't get that kind of desired result of the Dharma practice. And I think it happens because of not knowing the way to practice the Dharma, right? So it's really important to know the correct way of engaging with the Dharma. That's why I again emphasize that.
Ta teni nganzu ngarang su sem de la shide mayon ye ki zogo di kar resna diba shidang diba mangbo sha chu gurden diba sum da bu jure sum bare teni nganzu che nyamsu lembe kapsula teni diba sumbo di pa meba soye ki nyembo la sherap sum se chig rangyu la kebe koni diba di sel ni teni sanje kopang topsena da tarba topsena da kandar sem ki tengi shididi ni dendes dupku gore sumbare da dila kari se lagiresna töbe sherap sambe sherap gombe sherap sena ni sherap sumgi ani marikpa diba sumdi selni teni semgi shididin dupku gore se da ngaso namba sanje peki lam ki rimba am domshi dawoji chati gore.
We say in the Dharma that what really disturbs our mind is the three types of, you can say, obscurations, or the three types of ignorance. And we have in the Dharma we then present three types of antidotes or remedies that will help us to clear away these obscurations that rob our minds of peace and well-being. So what is that antidote, or the three types of really antidote? It's the three types of wisdom. The three types of wisdom that will help us to clear away this confusion or ignorance so that we can achieve liberation or Buddhahood, whatever goal is desired. And so that by Buddhahood liberation, we can also translate that into the goal of achieving permanent, lasting, true happiness and well-being, peace of our minds. So now, what are these three types of wisdoms? That's the remedy, right? That will help us then to achieve our desired Dharma goal. It's the wisdom that arises from receiving the teachings. That's one. It's the wisdom that arises from reflecting on the meaning of the teachings. It's two. And it's the wisdom that stems from our own practice. Sometimes we can also translate them three insights. So you can hear it's like insight or wisdom, knowledge, but the meaning is that it's what kind of insight or wisdom that we gain from studying, reflecting, and meditating. And when we have these three types of insight or knowledge, wisdom, we will really be able to purify or clear away the three types of ignorance or misunderstandings, obscurations. So it's a really, really important stages of the Dharma path. It's kind of a summary, we can say, of the Dharma.
Tati kanderesena dripa sum yepe nani dripa tangpo di kararesena mishepe dripa sayadre hamako demba kare yimba nilu kare yimba hamako ni ngaranzu chul yungo langja tang dorje kare yimba hamako ni ngaranzu chul yungo re ta mishepe dripa di selbiki nyimbo la kare tebe sherabs teba je yongdu langja kare yimba dorje kare yimba nangsul kare yimba nisu kare yimba dizu hako yungo re dorduina mishe ben dribagi nyimbo la tebe sherab di rangyu la ki yongdu mishe be driba di seldu go re
So let's now look at the obscurations and how these three types of wisdom or insight really clear away these obscurations. The first obscuration is the ignorance of not knowing how things truly are, not knowing true nature of phenomena, not knowing what to accept, what is good for us, and what to reject, what is counterproductive or bad for us. And in order to remedy that kind of lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, what we need to do, we need to receive the teachings, we need to study. And through our study, we need to give rise to that insight or wisdom, right? That comes as the outcome of studying and receiving the teachings. So once we have that wisdom, that knowledge that comes from our studies, we will know what is good for us, right? We will understand what is what. We will know what's the true mode of phenomena and what is just the appearing, seeming mode of phenomena, how they really appear and how they truly are. We will be able to understand it from studying. So that's how the wisdom that comes from our process of studying, receiving the teachings, going to clear away that first type of ignorance or obscuration of not knowing.
tene ta dripa nipa di kararesena tesumgi dripa sayadi kararesena ngaranzu ki sembagi nipa di chungchung re ngobogi nesu sayadi shiragi gyachumbuji re tende yinba yindu ta tueba tsamchigi lamsang nganzu la yishiki ki mare ngishiki ki mare lakwardu ngaranzu la bakchak di pe shukchumbuji yore bakchak ki wangi ngarang zu ha gu gu yone yang lagle na ta ma tu be ke kange mang bu chung du wa bakcha ki wang
Kare gond cheson kare matupa hako inayan.
pena ngarang pena kap kap la langdor se ti yabu garre dubu garre nganzu intellectually ha gu gu yor ba ine garre sa ngarang zu da ti komshi di pe shukche dani te yang ha go shindola dirji ngishi ke ma to patinde kange mango chur pena ngarang zu fast food tang tinju sagyu yo mare sene ha go yor de ine yang ngazu thongdu rawa me ba sa sho du do ba tinde nesu mangbo chur oda tinju dang de la kar res na tini tiba ni pas semla ngishi ke ma to pe kale ta di dine kare ki me ba so gere sene samjung gi sherap se adi me ba so go res ta samjung gi sherap se adi tini samlo yapo tang ni te sha be ke tanda de la susu gi gomji je ba de la se gere samlo tang ba de la se gere te ba samla ma sha ba chine semla nganzu ina confident ta wach ke chu ba de la
The second type of obscuration that we encounter is the lack of certainty, having doubts, right? Because, well, that's only natural for us humans because the true natural state of all phenomena is extremely profound and vast, and our minds can do just so much. They are limited. The power of our mind is limited. So, what I mean by this obscuration is that even though we might intellectually understand what is what, because we have already gained that first type of wisdom, right? That comes from studying, that insight. So we intellectually do hold this information, what's good, what's bad for us. But the problem is that because of our strong habitual tendencies, that knowledge, that intellectual knowledge, is not going deeper. It's not getting ingrained in our minds, so to say. It's not really penetrating our minds and our being, not getting like really, let's say, yes, ingrained in our being. It's just like, basically, give an example, we all know fast food is bad. Well, okay, let's say some of us know that fast food is bad for you. And yet, knowing that doesn't prevent us from binging, right? Going to McDonald's and just binging because, well, that's just a matter of habit. The strong tendency overpowers our knowledge. So what happens that we need to strengthen our kind of that really deep understanding that we really call certainty, that confidence, not just knowing intellectually, but really, really, truly taking the teachings to heart, that kind of certainty in the teachings, that comes from the process of reflecting, contemplating on the Dharma, not just leaving it as a mere theory, but really thinking about it, pondering over, so that Dharma becomes something really intimate, something personal, and we gain certainty. So that's what happens here. The wisdom that comes from reflection, that insight that comes from reflection, will then counteract our doubts, a kind of inability to really let the Dharma teachings go deeper in our being.
tene sumba di ta ngazu ta dong yang chik bakchak tawa chik la di gyore jishin tu matok bachi ta kyacha gupchu gogu sudabashina ta dung kyacha gya machak ba to zoji o dinde gi tripa di tene gomjungi sherap sedita samjungi sherap di kala kansamchi shukchomba chasare de tatung yang tene mythuni sosogi nyongwa la jar yongba kapsala tene ta kyacha gya dende resha di yin sambaki nganzu ina karisa korweta tejungi sherab dinzu tos nganzu ina concept warwa dadung real thing chayo marwa ten kerang la gomjungi sherab kiye onde kapsula ta ngone dane ki real chayo gore penna kerang ki tejungi sherab kapsula mitakpa re sine gorwa ine ngone thonggi mindwa miki te gomjungi sherab de ki yongbe kapsula ngone dane ki mitakpa yimbala kerang ki miki thongyong it becomes injikala masona. It's not just concepts, it becomes a real thing. Tilatini gomjungi shirab sigure. Life tower.
And the third obscuration, the last one, is a really, really subtle one. It's when we are not. Let me start again. It's a very subtle obscuration. It's like that 1% that we still don't get. Let's say we really understood 99% from that previous wisdom that comes from reflection, when we really ingrain the Dharma in our being, when we really take it deeper through reflection and we really gain certainty. But it's not enough. There is still something missing. We're still not able to fully understand or like realize how things truly are. And that can be cleared away, that kind of very subtle last remaining obscuration that prevents us from seeing how things are, can be cleared away through the process of meditation, right? So that wisdom, that insight that comes from meditation, from our practice, really strengthens our confidence, our understanding, our experience. It brings us to the 100% of certainty. If before we kind of really ingrained the Dharma, we took it to heart, but there's still something is missing. And that's why we meditate. That's why we practice over and over again, so that that experience becomes a real thing. Let's say that the first type of wisdom, insight that comes from study, it's just a concept. And it's only through the second, third wisdom that that concept becomes a real thing. To give an example, when we study, when we hear the teachings, we hear about impermanence, and we do get relatively easy and comprehension of what impermanence means, right? We have that intellectual understanding, things are impermanent. That's the first type of wisdom. It's just a mere concept. It's a theory. We understand it, but it's still not playing out in our lives, right? We don't really see it with our eyes, like really seeing impermanence. We know about it, but we don't live it, so to say. And it's only with the second, third type of wisdom, this like meditation, this third wisdom, that things that, the teachings become not just the concepts or theories, but they become real life. Like we really live it. We live impermanence. We see it with our own eyes. We experience it fully. That's what happens with the practice of the Dharma.
Tati tini nganzu ki chö se tsik jorwa, chö se tsik dila, beba ki tsik dila, gyurje tepa se lawe chik gowa chi yore, gyurwa se chik transform. Tati kandis chagire se na, töbi ki sherab la teni, mishe ki tripa di sel ni gowa ki yungu yore. Niluk se de karire se de. Teni sambi sherab la teni, tesum ki tripa di sel ni nyongwa ki yungu yore. Töba tsamchi mayimpa nyongwa. Teni sumba gomjungi sherab la teni mishe bi tripa tawa de sel ni tokpa sini chi ki yungu yore rangyu la. Di yundu ta kandis ni sem di chöbare se na dada ki sem mishe ba di Teni gowa la chak, gowa di nyongwa la gyur, nyongwa di tokpa la gyur songbare. Di la che sila gyore. Transform cha songbare wa. Gowa di nyongwa la transform cha, nyongwa di tokpa la transform cha begi rimba di la nganzo namju che sini duks pecho tangi yobade, che dub sudi da tenis dub go gore.
The word Dharma, which is a Sanskrit term Dharma, which we keep also now in English translation, at least. In Tibetan, the term is Chö, and the meaning, the connotation of etymological connotation of this Chö is transformation, is to transform, to change. So really Dharma means transformation, and I will now illustrate to you what it means to accomplish then the Dharma. When we say accomplishing Dharma, what do we mean? Well, we start by not knowing, right, with things. So we study, we reflect, we receive the teachings, we study. And through the process of studying, hearing the teachings, we clear away this obscuration, ignorance of not knowing. And as a result of that, we gain intellectual understanding. Right? So study clears away not knowing, and the result is intellectual understanding. The next stage is the stage of reflection, right? Really taking the teachings to heart, thinking about them, reflecting on them, and that clears away our doubt. And as the result of that, we gain experience, experiential taste of the Dharma, not just mere understanding of it, but real experience of it. And the next stage is, in order to clear away the most subtle ignorance, we meditate. We put the teachings into practice and we meditate. And the result of that, clearing away the subtle ignorance, the result of that meditation is what we call stable realization. So in this way, the transformation, really that's the meaning of the Dharma, happens in the way that we start from us not knowing what is the true nature of phenomena, what is really, right? What's real, what's true. And we proceed to gaining intellectual understanding. What is the true nature of phenomena, true meaning of our mind. Then that intellectual understanding is being transformed into experience. And from experience, it's being transformed into stable realization. So that process of transformation from not knowing to intellectual understanding, to experiential understanding, to stable, lasting, unshakable realization, that process is called accomplishment of the Dharma. That's what we mean by really when we say accomplish, practice the Dharma.
Laso, ta diringi tordina nganzu che dup sedi lungi che di tesamji koni dup yongdu. Tini nuki kyundinsu pang. Tini dushi yagbotinsu ten. Tini zogo di ta kunlong di tini tse digi samlo dang mate pachi chung na. Tini nganzu chuzu chigi ring la parchin duka nyamsu lemba tang. Sunam ki tsok gyachimbo chik sak tuba tang. Tini damba sumki zi simba ina. Tini chue yang dagba chik chagi yores. Deyang tini chirdang nganzu chue chedangi rimba chasang di tsu dor duisha na. Tue sam gom sumki shirab sum nangla dudu gore. Tende chini nyamsu lengu gore. Dila kari se gore se na chue dup sini segire se adita. Dor duichi shubayin.
In this way, today we have looked at the meaning of accomplishing the Dharma. What is meant by saying accomplishing the sacred Dharma? Especially in our context, what we looked at is how, in this 1 hour class, we accomplish the Dharma of scriptural transmission by means of studying the teachings, reflecting on the teachings. We looked at the proper way of receiving the teachings, that when we do study and reflect, when we engage with this Dharma of scriptures, we need to make sure that we are free from the three folds of a vessel, and that we have a proper notions of being like a sick person, Dharma being like a medicine, and with the pure motivation that is not mixed with worldly agendas or kind of the objectives for this life only, we can then, in this 1 hour, accomplish the practice of the 6 paramitas and accumulate a really vast amount of merit. If we do it by embracing this 1 hour class or Dharma session with the 3 excellences. In this way, it becomes a really pure, authentic Dharma. So we have seen what is meant by Dharma. When we say the Dharma, accomplishing the Dharma, if we put it into gradual process, we explain it by means of gaining 3 types of wisdom that comes from study, reflection, and meditation. Right? And that's what is really being meant by accomplishing the Dharma. So all of this I have briefly explained today.
나서 되니 다 가상 먼저 가서 봐봐 Gyud Lama 되게 원적이 주들라 아니 정말 땡주디 준비 중단기 남다 잡으직당 되니 땡주디 주자가래 임바당 되니 숨바디 땡주들라 주빈 거바된주 슈기인스 라바인 아니 땡주 된다지만이 네 미투니 슈기인스 다드링에디 원도디 최 년당디 내가 전부 잡아지 통송 디메나 아주 럽종 장바 잠지마도 최 두발은 두그민도 딘데 임바인디 딘수 슈바인스
In our first Dharma session last week, I have said that I'm going to start by giving an introduction to the text, that is the Uttara Tantra Shastra. My introduction, I said that I will divide it into 3 parts. I will look at the kind of life story of the author and relate that to the title of the text. So we'll look at this kind of source of the teachings. Secondly, I said that the second part of my introduction will be looking at the main subject matter of the treatise. So what's the main teachings there? And lastly, we will look at the need and benefits, like the necessity for studying this text and reflecting on this text and what will come out of that process. But today I didn't really go into any of those points that I already started explaining last week. Oh, I will continue. We will continue with that next class, so don't worry. We not we didn't lose the track. However, I thought it's really of utmost importance to mention how we need to relate to the Dharma, to this class. Exactly, actually, not as an ordinary class, but as a Dharma session, so that what we do here will not become just another study that we do, but rather will become a practice, accomplishment of the Dharma. I thought it's really important to emphasize how we can achieve that, so I spent some time on that today.
되니 다케 남바기 디 material dinso ta tingsan le lawo chini online la ragre dinso ke namba download che gyure lakor do chawa tang tini dinso nge par do sigro nang sinani nge regu shugu yes
As for the material that we will use in these Dharma sessions, such as root text and any other additional material, I think it's very easy to get these days. You can order the book online, let's say, in your Kindle, etc., or other sources that we're not really advertising here, but you'll find the way, guys. And I just a note from translator, because the translation that I will use in English translation for the text, right? I will read the root text that Khenpo will read in Tibetan. The one that I will use here, it's the book called Buddha Nature, the Mahayana Uttaratantra Shastra with commentary. The book itself is just like called the Buddha Nature, and it's a commentary on also on the commentary done by Jamgon Control Lodro Taye. So if you just find book called Buddha Nature, you can get the book that I will use in this class. So we will then have the same root text. Okay?
라서 다데니 안수 숨바 담바 숨기나니 숨바디 ngowachi tangin dini kenambake ngowatang molamdi nyamdu yabu jabrotans.
Let's now engage in the third excellence, the third excellent point, that of dedication. Please, let's do it together. Please join me in making a very sincere dedication and aspiration prayers.
Janchu semchu rinpoche magye panama gyurme Keba nyamba mebarayam Gongne gondun pelvaresho